Tonight, how much is too much screen time? The caravan rally at Mystery Creek. What's the next 10 years looking like for Hamilton? And Waikato River restoration launched. Kia ora and good evening. Welcome to Central News on TV Central for Friday the 27th of February. I'm Amanda Harper. In today's news, fish and game officers around Lake Rotorua stream mouths have been threatened with violence and on occasion a knife. Breaches are on the rise with over 25 recorded in recent weeks, ranging from fishing without a licence, using illegal tackle, refusing to give details or giving false particulars, and obstructing officers in their duties. Eastern Region officers have stepped up their compliance activities, increasing the frequency of random checks and boosting the number of officers involved in response to the breaches. Monitoring has included random checks made on weekdays and at weekends, as well as responding to tip-offs from members of the public. Fish and Game Officer Anthony Van Dorp says action is being taken against those who have been found committing offences, and this will include prosecution in some cases. A string of consistent performances on the world stage has seen a number of tauranga sailors called up to bolster Yachting New Zealand's high-performance team. Yachting NZ have confirmed 15 crews in the NZL sailing team for what will be a crucial year in the build-up to the 2016 Rio Olympics. All are chasing the ultimate goal of Olympic glory, but selection comes first, and this year is crucial in terms of demonstrating form through results on the world stage. Back from 2014 are 12 crews, while Sarah Winther, Michael Bullott and John Paul Tobin all return after demonstrating their commitment to the Olympic goal with top results last year. Bay of Plenty cool store and packhouse complexes are at risk of being destroyed by fire due to inadequate water supplies. Fire Service Bay of Plenty Coast Assistant Area Manager Graham Easton says he had grave concerns that inadequate water would result in a total loss of property. Lessons learned from the 2008 Tamahere cool store fire, which killed one firefighter and injured 7 others, were behind Mr Easton's comments to a recent meeting of the Western Bay Rural Fire Authority. A groundbreaking collaboration between dairy industry body Dairy NZ, the Waikato River Authority and Waikato Regional Council is lining up to better protect and restore the Waikato River. The Waikato River Restoration Strategy project was launched near Hamilton yesterday by Environment Minister Nick Smith. The Authority and Dairy NZ are contributing $200,000 each in direct costs, with the Regional Council contributing $75,000. Other costs will be met by significant in-kind support, such as staff time from Dairy NZ and the Council. A key aim of the new Waikato River Restoration Strategy will be to ensure that this combined work, plus the work of other agencies, is carried out as efficiently as possible, whilst obtaining maximum benefit by ensuring it is integrated and coordinated. Authority Co-Chair Tokoro Irangi Morgan says their aim is to maximise opportunities to realise the vision for a healthy Waikato River that sustains abundant life and prosperous communities. And now for our region's weather. Hamilton, your Saturday will be mainly fine with some morning and evening cloud and light winds. Your expected high is 27 and an overnight low of 11. The rest of the Waikato are mostly the same with areas of morning and evening cloud. Matamata, your high is 27 with a low of 14. Paeroa, your high is 25 with a low of 13. Te Awamutu, 27 high and overnight low of 11. Tokoroa, 25 high and overnight low of 11 as well. Tauranga, mostly fine with morning and evening cloud and a warm northerly breeze. Your high is 26 with an overnight low of 15. For other parts of the bay, mostly fine with morning and evening cloud and a warm northerly breeze. Te Puke, your high is 24 with an overnight low of 15. And for the marine forecast, west coast a variable 10 knots in most places. Your high tide is 6:16 p.m. And on the east coast a variable 5 knots but northerly 10 knots in the afternoon. Fine apart from morning and evening cloud. Your high tide is at 3:08 in the afternoon. Coming up, the Motorhome and Caravan Expo. Welcome back to Central News. I'm Amanda Harper. The Campercare New Zealand Motorhome and Caravan Show got underway today, and with house prices on the rise, the Kiwi dream of a summer batch is changing shape.
I think the stats show that they're hugely popular with New Zealanders, and I think it is because your traditional beach batch is unaffordable for many, and so this is a way of enjoying their whole country at a different spot every year, and they're actually now like a home away from home. They're not a funny old caravan that might have been 30 years ago. They're really like a little apartment on wheels, so it makes it comfortable too.
What's the Resine Caravan Do-Up Challenge?
That is a bit like the block for caravans. So two couples bring in their tired old caravan. Thanks to Resine, they go from drab to fab in 3 days. So they've got tasks throughout the 3 days, and then they're judged, and there'll be an eventual winner.
So tell me about the Everything Outdoor and Leisure area, which is new this year.
It is. We've actually rebranded slightly, so it's the Campercare Motorhome Caravan and Leisure Show, and really that's about evolving the show, and so we've incorporated boats and fishing and kayaking and anything to do really with the love of outdoors, because that all goes with motorhomes and caravans. So we're looking forward to that area this year.
How many exhibitors are going to be a part of the leisure element?
I'm not 100% sure on that area, but overall we've got over 120 different exhibitors here, which is really great.
So tell me how we take a walk down memory lane then.
That is celebrating all those gorgeous little retro caravans that people have lovingly done up, and we've got probably 13 or 14 of them in this big area, and they're just gorgeous. So these people have spent years doing them up, and they really go all out. So they'll be sitting there right down to matching knitting in their chair outside. It's just fantastic to see and it's a real crowd pleaser to see how they look, and so they're always the little tiny retro ones that just look amazing. So we love that area.
Have caravans grown quite substantially over the years?
Definitely. When you look at those to what we have today, they are, and they, as I said, they're like an apartment on wheels. You've got everything. You shower, a lovely kitchen. Many have push-out sides, so once you stop, the sides actually extend out to give you even more room, and they are huge too. So really, they're a home away from home now.
And it's a bit of a birthday for you guys, I understand.
It is. It's our 10th birthday this year. We're very proud to have been the National Motorhome and Caravan Show for 10 years. So we are celebrating that with a number of things. We've got $10 Friday entry price on Friday, plus we've got 10 exhibitors offering fantastic 10% or the number 10 deals throughout the weekend. So yeah, it's a real celebration of our 10th birthday.
And you have a special club?
Well, we want to reward those visitors who support the show. So for those visitors who spend $20,000 or more on one item at the show, become a VIP. And that actually involves a whole host of hospitality, complimentary, and really made to feel special for the next duration of the shows in the future. So it's a really rewarding those people who support the show. So this year will be an inaugural year to be a VIP.
The Campercare New Zealand Motorhome and Caravan Show is on all weekend at Mystery Creek. Tickets available at the door. A recent report found too much screen time can cause behavioural and health problems in infants. The Ministry of Health only provides guidelines for children over 5.
We're all guilty of it. You said you're guilty of it. I'm not a parent yet, but I know people that are guilty of it. Even when I am babysitting, sometimes I'm guilty of it.
Very handy.
We do. We pop our children in front of the TV because, we might need to have 5 minutes to ourselves.
Or there's a good educational program on TV.
Well, exactly. So where's this balance?
Well, I think it's when it becomes a long period of time, you start to notice it in your children. They start to get tetchy, they get demanding of technology, so they have to have it, and there's a tantrum if they don't. They're not sleeping well at night, they're getting sore eyes, perhaps even they're just not spending time outside playing, and they can't actually play without technology. Then you know you've got a bit of a problem.
And there was one of the outcomes that said it could lead to was a problematic dependency on technology. I find that
That's
really,
kind of an academic way of saying addicted.
yeah.
And I think as parents we know when our kids are addicted to something, because when you say no, they have a meltdown. But to be honest, we do as well. I think we're all addicted. You know, look, if there's a break in the traffic or something, what's the first thing I do? I get out my phone and check some news or clear my emails. We all suffer from that. You just have to go into a cafe and look at people, and the majority of them are looking down at their phone. And we're losing that eye-to-eye contact. One of the interesting things in the report was just some research that's been done about children saying that they're missing some of the eye contact from their parents, which I thought was a very interesting aspect. So there's lots of little interesting bits of research in there, and some of the recommendations is about having no technology time, as I said, keeping the technology out of bedrooms, because bedrooms are for sleeping. It's having technology-free dinner times, so that you have to talk face-to-face with people without looking at technology. It's encouraging kids to understand that actually too much technology may not be a good thing, even though they're dying to have more.
You talk about sleep problems, and I always refer to my sleep hygiene, about certain things we need to do around bed, and
right.
routine and stuff like that. There's this term that's come out with this report, and I love it, information hygiene. What would you say means information hygiene?
Well, when you look at any research, you need to find out firstly who's paid for the research and who's pushing it, to make sure that there's not an agenda behind the research. We learnt that with the tobacco industry and cigarettes. We were told that cigarettes were good for you, and of course we realise now that it was being pushed by huge tobacco industry. So what the report is saying is that when we look at any research around technology, obviously people are going to say technology is great, but we need to make sure that we're also getting that balance of how much is too much. And I think that's the overriding message from this report, which I'd encourage people to download from our website and read through themselves, especially if they're a parent. It's simply saying how much is too much, and if your child is having too much, what are some of the possible health consequences, what are some of the warning lights, and what can you do? And I think it's got some really practical advice, which we as a family follow ourselves.
How much is too much then?
Well, the Ministry of Health say no more than 2 hours a day outside of school time. For under 5-year-olds, some countries say kids shouldn't have it at all. Now, I think that's probably slightly unrealistic. So I think it's putting the ball back in the court of the parents. But I think parents just need to understand some of this research. I mean, I think a lot of parents will read this research and the light bulb will go on and they'll say, so that's why they're getting scratchy at night. That's why they're not finding it hard to get to sleep. I need to get that technology out of their bedroom. We need to have technology-free times. They may say to themselves, you know what, we sit around and none of us are talking to each other. There's no eye contact because we're all looking at our screens, or and the image on the front page of the report shows a family around a table and they're not looking at each other, they're all looking at their devices. So, I think just by raising this issue, the report doesn't call for government intervention. That's not what it's asking for. It's asking for some of this research to be made more available and better guidelines. It's also asking that screen time become an issue in classrooms as well, that they talk about it with kids and actually say, hey, look, screens are great, we love them, but there is such a thing as too much.
After the break, we continue our discussion on too much screen time. Welcome back. We now continue with our discussion with Bob McCoskrie.
That school element that you were talking about, is there guidelines for how much they should be having in school and how much teachers should really be using I mean, I'm all for using technology in schools, but what happened to picking up an old book?
Well, there is none. There's no guidelines. In fact, if anything, there's a push for technology. And I can understand that to a certain degree because schools will be reflecting the direction the culture is going in. But the problem is that nobody's talking about the health issue. And I think, yeah, let's introduce technology, that's fine, but also talk about the health aspect of it. And like you say, one thing I find interesting is that they sort of, you know, you're busy typing and on keyboards all the time, and then suddenly you go into the final. I found this very interesting with my children. They go into the final exam, there's no keyboard, they've got to write. And so suddenly they're doing something that they haven't been doing a lot of while they've been doing the IT in school. So, I mean, that's an interesting little quirky aspect to it. So, once again, it's like all things. It's like donuts, as we know. They're great, but in moderation.
It's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that. Is, you know, so many of us nowadays hardly ever write by hand. I wonder how long it'll be until they start doing exams and personal laptops and.
Yeah, I think that's the route that they're going down, and of course then you're looking at the whole safety issue of what's on the internet, because it's a playground for lots of deviancy, unfortunately. So you know, there's some nasty stuff on the internet which we want to protect our kids from. So then you're looking at good, you know, software to protect kids from that type of thing. But it is that drive. Technology is great. There's some great educational tools. There's some great programs on TV that are educational. My kids grew up with Blue's Clues, you know, and it was those Sesame Street, those types of things were great. But there becomes a point where your child is just on the screen the whole time. They don't know how to kick a ball. They don't know how to create fun without something switched on. And that's when we should be concerned. And of course, when it affects their eyes, when they're looking at screens, when they're watching visually impacting stuff a lot of the time, especially as young kids as well.
Well, I guess, do you think there should be more guidelines around what they're watching? I mean, I know we have these ratings of PG and all that kind of thing, but I mean, you look at some of these Japanese anime, they're actually quite violent, really.
Yeah, and I don't think the report goes down that track of censorship as such. It's simply saying, it's looking more at, is there an issue with looking at brightly lit screens, and what effect does that have, and what could you be doing if you weren't playing the PlayStation on your iPhone? I mean, you and I know that we could spend all day on our smartphones just playing, but in fact, maybe what we should be doing is going for a surf or going for a walk or doing some exercise, or maybe face-to-face having a chat with somebody over a cup of coffee.
Absolutely, and I guess that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, if we were to tell our children to only use this a certain amount, would kind of have to practice what we preach.
Exactly, and that's what worries me. But it might be good for us as well, you know, and I think it's good for us to challenge ourselves as to how much. I mean, one of the interesting things about the report was it talks about losing empathy and the ability to read emotion, because when you're on the screen, all it is words and, you know, sometimes a smiley face icon or something like that. But you actually lose that, as we know, in language. A lot of language is not just the spoken or the verbal, it's also eyes, expression, and unfortunately you lose some of that. And so what they're finding is that some kids are losing the ability to feel empathy and to read emotions.
With technology becoming more and more a part of our everyday lives, the question of how much screen time is too much has become very important. Up next, we have another look at the Mayor of Hamilton, Julie Haraka, discussing the city's long-term plan.
Yeah, so we've been in budget discussions and analysing stuff for the last 6 months or so. Big infrastructure challenges for the city because we're growing so fast. So maintaining the things we've got and investing in new subdivisions has been a big topic of debate. So look, where we've landed on the draft, and we've still got a couple of meetings to go before we finalise it for the public to have a good look at. But essentially we're keeping the rates the same as we have for the last 3 years, 3.8% each year. That's unchanged. We're still going to balance our books by 2016. You know, we've been operating an overdraft for a while and we've been trying to get ourselves back up. So we're going to be still on our balance books by 2016, which is a really important thing for the city because it changes the whole way we can manage the budget. And the other issue, of course, is we're very focused on the debt and how we manage that. So this year what we've done is we've got our sort of our debt track on our debt to revenue ratio, and we aim to be 200%, and that's kind of where we need to be all the time. So we've been tracking towards that. We've shifted that out 2 years to enable us to pay for some much needed infrastructure in the city. So I think we've landed in a really good space. We've also, about 90% of the capital budget is infrastructure and maintaining the assets we've got, which are predominantly water, a lot of investment in water and wastewater. So, the things that keep the city going that really aren't that interesting to talk about, but absolutely essential. And then we've also looked at investing in, of course, some of the things that are really important to our community. Keeping the playgrounds program going, which has been a huge success, with our playground, the lake that we just opened. So keeping our finger on that, also making sure we continue to invest in the green spaces and the sports areas that are important to the city as well. So I think there's a good balance, but certainly a big focus on infrastructure investment and growth.
The Founders Theatre has been pinpointed as in dire need of help and restoration. Tell me what's going to happen.
Yeah, I did make a comment that we've still got no hot water in the toilets at Founders Theatre, which seems incredible in the century we're living in, but that's the state of it. So we've allowed a provision in the budget, and the back end of the 10-year budget, 13 or so million, to do some major upgrades at Founders Theatre. But in the meantime, over the next year, we'll be doing a detailed business case and analysis of exactly where the spend needs to be and exactly what it is that we will be doing, how much we'll be investing in particular parts. But essentially, the Fly Tower, which holds all the props and is over the stage for all the productions, that is where the major spend is, and that's of course essential to enable productions of a certain type to continue to go at Founders. So at the moment that Fly Tower's the original Fly Tower. It's had some upgrades along the way, but it's essentially the original Fly Tower when the theatre was built 50 years ago, so well in need of upgrade. So that we'll also be looking at the stage setup. With the Fly Tower. We want to work out what size Fly Tower is what we need for the future. And there's also some provision in that 13 or so million to look at some other upgrades around the front of the theatre, when you walk into Founders Theatre and what the offering for the public is, and of course an upgrade to the toilets. So the detailed business case will come back in the next year, and that will tell us the real details and where we need to put most of the money.
The Founders Theatre is such a well-loved theatre. Was there ever any discussion just to sell it off and let it go?
Look, we did a theatres review, as you know, about 18 months ago, and that put forward a couple of options. And, it was interesting to get the public feedback about that. The theatre is well loved, but there were a portion of the community that said, look, let's start again. But I think for the council, we recognised, a lot of investment has gone into Founders Theatre. The option not to invest in it would mean a new theatre, and that's just, it's not warranted in a city, I think, our size. So we wanted to make sure that Founders was brought up to the standard it should be, and we've got a real focus on the arts sector. Over the last year, we've been really looking closely at how we manage the theatres across the city. We've gifted a couple of the theatres over to trusts to enable the theatre community and the performance community to run them, which I think has been a great initiative and welcomed by the communities. But this is our premier theatre in the city, and we need to maintain it at that standard.
For more information on the Hamilton Draft Long-Term Plan, go to hamilton.gov.nz. That is it for the week from me. If you like what you see, why not like us on Facebook? Search centralnews.tv. Or if you think you may have a story lead or perhaps feedback about the show, email news@tvcentral.co.nz. We would love to hear from you. I'll be back on Monday with more stories from the Waikato and the Bay of Plenty. My name is Amanda Harper. Have a good weekend. Pō Marie.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.